welcome to the Senior View. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Mary Arnaud, and she is the founder of the book club here at the Senior Center. And so she's going to talk to us about what's it like to come together with other people and talk about a book and that you all read. You have like a month to read the book, and you come together. And I think that's wonderful. It's, you know, a book is like a friend. It really is. And so having special moments together, coming together and just chatting away about something special that you read. Right, Mary?
Yes, Mary, very much so. And thank you, by the way, for having me on the show today.
Oh.
I do have to say, though, I'm not really the founder so much as I am just the person who does a little coordinating so that we can all get together. As I understand it, there was a book club at the Senior Center for many, many years, and then it kind of dropped off when the person who was leading it could no longer do it. And then about 3 years ago, they were looking for another person who would be willing to coordinate things and bring people together, you know, for a book club. And I had been wanting to do something, you know, with the Senior Center as a volunteer. So I said, I'd love to do that. And so then we pulled it all together and started advertising. We were going to do another book club, and luckily people were interested. It started out a little bit slow at first, you know, maybe 3, 4, 5 people. And now we're up to, I believe, 12. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to all the book club members who come. They're such a wonderful group every month. We do meet the first Monday of the month at 10:30 in the library at the Senior Center, unless it's a holiday. And then we meet the second Monday of the month if most people are available to do it and they want to do it. And surprisingly, too, I thought maybe in the summer people would want to take some time off, but we've been going 12 months a year, and it's been wonderful.
I can understand it, you know, and you know, when you think of people coming together for something special like this, it must be wonderful to talk about, you know, how you feel about something that you read. Because, you know, you have 5 people, let's say, you may have 5 different opinions. And to listen, you learn, and the friendships must be really very special.
Well, you made some very important points there, is one about coming together and sharing how you feel about something that you've read. I'll talk to that one first, because oftentimes some of the books we have read have evoked a lot of emotions in people, depending on their backgrounds and their experiences in their own life. And so when we talk about the book, we often hear from people about why they feel the way they do about a chapter or the whole story in the book because of something that happened with them in their background. The other thing we like to do in terms of, you know, just catching up with one another and, you know, the friendship over the book club is oftentimes we start, before we get into talking about the book, we'll just catch up with one another. Well, what have you been doing over the last month? Did anything important happen or anything you want to share? There's no pressure. We don't, you know, nobody has to say anything if they don't want to. It's a non-pressure group. And oftentimes they'll tell us about grandkids or weddings or special occasions and things that happen. Sometimes they even share if they're not feeling so well, if they've had to go to the hospital, or but it's a way that I just feel I want the group to be really cohesive, and so I like to hear how they're doing from month to month.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the friendships, yes, I think in the group it's a very, just everyone is willing to say something, you know, about the book. But before I forget, I want to mention that sometimes not everyone's able to read the book for that month. And again, there's no pressure. If for some reason you didn't read it, you didn't have time, you didn't like the book, no pressure. You just come in and join the group anyway. And so that's very nice because there's no pressure. Some, you know, book clubs, it's like you must read the book and you must have all these notes about, you know, how you felt. We're not like that. We're very easygoing. Most of the folks in the group are from Hopkinton. Some of them are from other towns, but they know people in the senior center, or they come to the senior center for another reason, and they join the group.
Wonderful, wonderful. I see that in the Hilltopper, our monthly newsletter, I hope you're reading it. In January, you're having the Hamilton Affair by Elizabeth Cobbs. In February, you'll be reading The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne.
Yeah, at the time you and I are talking, it's going to be just before the new year.
Yes.
And
yes.
What we try to do is so that our books can get in the Hilltopper on time, so people are aware. Sometimes there are people in the senior center, they don't necessarily want to come to the meetings, but they want to read the books and see what we're reading. I have a couple people who don't come to the meetings, but they always ask me, well, what book are you reading? Because I want to read it too. So we try to select books 2 or 3 months in advance so that it can make the Hilltopper and be published and people can see what the group is reading. That also helps that if there is somebody who wants to join the group but they're not quite sure what type of books we read, if they put it in the Hilltopper, then they can see what books we read.
Now, does somebody go out and buy all the books for the group? Or, you know, where do you get the books?
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to put a plug in for the Hopkinton Public Library because we are registered there as the Senior Center Book Club. And I will tell you that within our group, some people will use an electronic device like a Kindle, and they will order the book, download it through that, and read their book online, on their device. Other people like to go out and actually buy their book, so they'll go out to a bookstore and buy it. And then we have a group that likes to get their books through the public library. And so I always ask in the meetings, who wants me to order the book for them through the Hopkinton Public Library? And I usually get about the same, 3, 4, 5 people that say, order one for me. And it's very easy. Then I just send an email over to the circulation desk at the library and say, please order this book for the following Hopkinton Senior Center Book Club members. And within usually a couple of days, the books have come in, they notified the folks that wanted the book through the library, and then each person goes over and picks it up themselves.
Wonderful.
So we
wonderful.
have different ways of getting the books.
Yes, yes, you're a team.
Yeah, and also sometimes we'll pick a book that's been out for a while, and it might actually be at the library at the senior center. So they can look through there too if somebody needs. Or since it's been out for a while, somebody may have, for whatever reason, have a copy and they can loan it out. So lots of different ways. You don't have to worry about how to get the books.
That's right, that's right. It is a wonderful library, isn't it, at the senior center? And, they work so hard. Denny Potenzo and, of course, the Ellsworths, I remember his mother, Jeanette Ellsworth, at the former public library here in town. And a wonderful, wonderful person, that's for sure. And they do such a great job in keeping up with the books there and everything. And so you want to join and see, But what have been some of the favorite books?
Well, I did bring a sample of some of the books that we have read.
Good. Okay.
Since I've been heading up the book club, it's been about 3 years, so we've read quite a few. I couldn't bring them all because it would take up too much space. And I didn't necessarily bring the ones that were everybody's favorite, because that's one thing is that everybody's been pretty good about reading the book, whether they liked it or not, and coming in and sharing I did like it, I didn't like it. And the great thing is it doesn't matter whether you liked it or not. I mean, it's not a judgment kind of group. If you didn't like it, that's fine. You talk to why you didn't like it, why it didn't speak to you. Or if you really liked it, what were the things about the book? And we read a wide variety. So I brought in one that is a sample about a World War II story that happens to be a true story, Unbroken. And I think many, many people in the audience will realize that, probably have read it and know about the book. That one was pretty much universally liked by everyone. And another one we just read recently, The Unwanted Guest, is a mystery, a fiction mystery. And we've read several mysteries, and those go over pretty well. But sometimes, they didn't quite like how the story was written. Somebody might say, I didn't like the characters in the book. But we've read The Unwanted Guest, rather. This one happens to be one of my favorites, The Language of Flowers. Read that a couple of years ago, and it's a wonderful little story. And when I first started reading it, I thought, I like flowers, but I don't know anything about flowers. And I thought, oh, is this going to be boring? But I really like this one. It's a wonderful story, and it's it's fiction, excuse me. But the way the author weaves in the different flowers into the story. So that was one.
That sounds very nice.
Yeah. And then this last one I brought, just as a sample, this is a nonfiction. It's called Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. And this is about a young man who was born in South Africa at the time of when apartheid was still there, and why he was considered a crime, because it was a black and white couple which were not allowed at the time as his mother and father. And so it's a true story, as is Unbroken, a true story. And I could name so many others. In fact, I brought a long list, but I don't know if we want to go through that. The idea is that we read a variety.
When I think of it, is there a different, for authors, when you compare our author today to like 30, 40 years ago, has writing changed at all? How they, do they feel free to say this, without guilt, or, or expressing what they're trying to express and what they're writing compared to, like 30, 40 years ago? I was just wondering, do you think that there's a change in writing? I guess is my question. Because today everything comes out. Today everything, just, everything's on the table now. But back then, they were very, very careful, what they wrote, I think, and how it was said. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I was just wondering, how do you feel about that? Do you think there's a change?
I think it's a very good question. It's one I probably will not be able to address adequately. Because I have to think about books that I've read that are decades old compared to the things that we read today in the book club. We do tend to read more recent books. I would say we try to pick books out that people are interested in that have been published more recently. Sometimes we're not able to get the latest books that are out because they're too popular, and it's hard to get them through the library until a few months have passed. But I will say, in terms of authors from the past, or at least do agree with you, that today people are much more open about every topic.
Yes.
So whether you're reading a fiction or a nonfiction or autobiography, people do tend to share more very explicitly about whatever topic they're talking about. One thing we haven't done any of really, is read the classics. We haven't gone into like Les Miserables or, War of the Worlds or something, that from decades ago. Again, we tend to stay with more current ones.
I see. I remember Nancy Drew. Do you remember Nancy Drew?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
The little mysteries of Nancy Drew.
Oh,
and
yes.
her.
Yeah. And because I love reading too, and it's amazing. Since I've retired, I have less time to read. Isn't that something? You think life slows down, but it doesn't really in some ways.
Well, and that's a good thing, though, if you stay involved with a lot of things. But when you mention Nancy Drew, it makes me think of an author today that's very popular, Louise Penny, who writes murder mysteries. And I think in her series now, there's something like 20 plus that she's written. And I know people that have read every single one of them. And we read one. We read her first one, Still Life. Was very enjoyable. So if you're into the mysteries, and they're not, some murder mysteries are, let's face it, blood, guts, and gore, right? Louise Penny isn't like that. As a matter of fact, the priest at my church, that's one of his favorite authors. He's read all her mysteries. So that would be a series I would suggest if you wanted to look into, if you like the mysteries, as Louise Penny. It's lighter mystery reading. It's not real intense.
That's what I like.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's a really good series. I've read a couple other ones of hers. I haven't read all of them, but she's a good author. Yeah.
Did you read the Mitford series by Jan Karan?
No. Is that one you would suggest to our club? What's that about?
You know, it's about a priest, a father in England, and it's just wonderful. And the story just goes on and on. You know, how he became their pastor, their priest, and his relationships with people in the community. And it just continues on from book to book. And she's quite an author, Jan Karan. Have you ever read any of her books?
I don't think so. The name doesn't sound familiar to
Yeah,
me.
K-A,
Now, are the
yeah.
books written in such a way that you can read one on its own? You don't have to read them in order, or is it best to read them? You have
Read it in order,
you
I
have to
would
read
say.
them in order.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. But they're wonderful.
Yeah.
They really are. What have been some of your favorite authors and books?
Well, actually, these right here, I
Okay.
liked all of them. So I would recommend them. Another one we read not too long ago is called Beneath the Scarlet Sky. It was also a true story, takes place in World War II, and the author escapes me. I could probably find it in my list somewhere. But that was one we read a couple of months ago too, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was one that was hard to put down. I remember when I read Unbroken, I read it in one day. It was just one of those,
Really?
you know, true gripping stories. When you read World War II stories that are true, they're not just historical fiction, but they're actually something. Sometimes they're hard to get through.
I
You
would
know,
think so.
To think about those times
Yes,
again and,
yes,
and what it was like.
Yes.
But Unbroken and Beneath the Scarlet Sky were written so well that in spite of the brutality in the book, you wanted to read it. You wanted to know what happened to each person in the book. So I really enjoyed, if that's the proper word, I was really glad that I read both stories. Those.
I know it brings back memories, and it brings back, you know, what you read maybe in the newspaper or during that period of time, and it can be difficult, you
Yeah.
know, and that's why I think coming together and sharing these feelings are very important, and that, you know, you're not different. We all have the same feelings, and feelings are feelings, right?
Yes. Well, and we try to, as best we can, during the meetings, is talk about how the book impacted us. Was it just an enjoyable read, which is fine, or did it have some more deeper meaning for you? And we don't put any pressure on anybody to really share that.
Right.
Sometimes we'll go around the room. Sometimes we'll just start and say, okay, I'll start to my left and we'll go around this way, and everybody has a chance to talk about the book, whether they liked it or not, who their favorite character was, what did they think of the writing style of the author, you know, whatever they want to talk about the book. And then other times, I'll open it up and say, is there anyone who wants to start? Because I don't want everybody to feel like there's some grand structure to all of this. We're just a group of nice people getting together, you know, and talk about an interesting book. And it could be interesting whether we liked it or not.
Yes.
But,
yes.
you know.
Yeah. Yep. And it's such a cozy room where you people are meeting, the library. And, you know, when I work in the gift shop or wherever I am, I look at it and, you know, everybody's so busy, you know, gabbing away. And I said, boy, that sounds pretty good. Very inviting, that's for sure.
Well, it's very nice at the Senior Center to allow us to use the library, because that's the perfect atmosphere, right, for a book club?
Yes, it is.
And,
yes, it is.
So that means that, you know, for that hour on that first Monday of the month, or second Monday, as I mentioned, if it's a holiday, that people can still come in and out of the library if they want to, but the group will be talking and everything, and so you know,
that's
they
good.
can still come in and look for a book or return a book. But generally, people know the book club is occurring at that time, and they let us have that hour for, you know, for getting through our discussion. So it's really nice of the Senior Center to put the book club in the library.
Now, you have a list of books. What have been some of the favorite ones, or in looking back, you know, the books that you have read, how did people enjoy them? And
Okay. Well, let me first say that in terms of selecting the book, as I mentioned, well, I don't know, I hadn't mentioned that yet. In terms of selecting the book, what I try to do is give everybody a chance to select a book. And so we start, and originally we started listing the months January through December, because there's 12 of us now, and we wrote down, okay, who's going to pick out the book for that month?
How nice, yes.
And that worked. And then sometimes we had to make little adjustments along the way because someone wasn't able to make a book club meeting, something came up. And so lately we've just been asking for some suggestions, and we get sometimes off the New York Times bestseller list. You'll see a couple of the books here are listed as New York Times bestseller list. Or there's the great PBS, a Great American Read effort that's going on now. Public Broadcasting published a book of 100 favorite books, you know, in America they want everybody to read. How they came up with the list, I'm not quite sure. But we've picked a couple off of that as well. And so there's varieties of way that we actually...
many choices.
We get our books, yes, many, many choices. And we've had books where, honestly, we've read them and maybe one person liked it, and you know, the rest of the group didn't. But again, there's no pressure on, you know, and there's no judgment on the person who maybe selected the book and people didn't like it. That's fine. The idea is to get a variety, nonfiction, fiction, historical fiction, historical, you know, fact, but to stimulate your mind, your conversation, and again, just to come to the group even if you didn't read the book. And I will mention that we do have one gentleman who joins us every month.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm encouraging others.
Yes,
It's
yes.
nice to have men in the group too, but all of the members are women except one, Chris. But we love having with them in the group, and sometimes it's a little different perspective when you're talking
That's
between
right.
a man and a woman.
Yes,
So it's
yes.
good.
Very good.
I think you
good.
also asked for what were some of the favorites.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I have to say that the Beneath the Scarlet Sky that we read, everybody, I think except one person, really enjoyed
Now, what's that about?
That's the World War II one.
World War II,
Another
okay.
one. Unbroken is a World War II one, and Beneath the Scarlet Sky. Unbroken is about an American who was captured during World War II. And Beneath the Scarlet Sky is about World War II over in Italy and a young Italian boy and his family. And I'm not going to give away any of the story because I would encourage people to read it. But he and his family, how the war affected them and what happened over in Italy at the time of World War II. Because we read a lot about the United States, and this one happens to take place in Italy. It was very well written. And in both cases, the people who are the central character of the story were interviewed by the author extensively. So it's,
I would think so.
Yeah, it's very, you know, factual.
Sure.
It's not made up. So.
Sure.
I would also just say that I always carry my little book with me when I go into the book club because it's a way for me to keep notes and track
Sure.
of like what we did read, and you know, if I make a note on who wants me to order the book or something. So you always see me carrying this little book into the Senior Center on book club day so I can make my little notes. And
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, you're a cozy group for sure. That's for sure.
it's a very good group.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
the
I love
friendship-
all my ladies and my gentlemen in my group, so shouting out hi to everybody again. They're just delightful, yeah.
I know. And when I look in the window, you know, as I said, it looks very cozy and inviting, you know. All you need is a fireplace to make it super cozy.
Nice.
And I know the knitters group, they do their knitting by the fireplace, and it looks so nice.
If I might also just add that if you are following the Hilltopper and you see what book we're reading and you want to come in just to talk about that book, that's okay too. You don't have to come in every month if you don't
Okay.
want to. Now, fortunately, the core members that we have, they do come every month, and I'm so glad because they bring me
yes.
such joy
Sure,
when they do.
Sure.
So I don't want everybody to just read one book and then come in and out. But
Yeah.
we have our core group, but we are always inviting anybody,
right.
even if you just read that one particular book and you
Yes.
want to come in and talk about it. Or if you're thinking about reading it and you want to hear what other people thought about it, you can come in and listen to the discussion and then maybe decide if you want to read it or not yourself.
Very good. Mary, I want to thank you for coming today. And as I said, a book is like a friend, and you make friends. And just to come and listen and to read and to discuss what you're reading. And it's a beautiful way of sharing. You know, you learn about others and, you know, you respect your own feelings, and it's just beautiful. So I
Thank
want
you.
to thank you for coming today.
Well, I'm really glad that I was here. It went very fast. There's so much more I could say about everybody in the group and how, but please come and join us
Yes.
anytime.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for having me on the show, Mary.
You are most welcome. We'll have you back. And thank you for watching, and you have a good night.
United Way fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community. Will you?
My name is Connor. My name is Nina. Gunny.
I'm Haley. Hi, Davis. Jake. We're the Hiller volleyball team.
My name is Emma. My name is May. My name is Shelby. My name is Sophie.
We're Alma Gal, and we love H-Camp.
We love H-Camp.
And I volunteer for H-Camp TV.
I watch H-Camp TV.
And I love H-Camp TV.
And I love H-Camp TV.
We love H-Camp TV.